Hey guys, Joshua Peterson here, Peterson Electric. It is going to be June of 2025 for my SEO guide. This is going to be what do I need to do for a service upgrade. For residential, it's single phase, okay? So it's two hots and a neutral. And everybody likes to go around saying 220 volt, 220, 220, 220, 220, 220. Sorry, it's not. Here in Colorado, honestly, I've never seen anything less than 230 volt, but typically it's around 240. Possibly 245, 248, 250. Nominal is anything that stays above 220 volt. But the correct terminology, honestly, here in Colorado is around 240 volt. Anyways, now that I've cleared that up, the minimum to a home, though, is 230.79 is 100 amps minimum. Whether that's a single-family dwelling, whether that's a townhome, sometimes multi-family. But where you're not going to see it, guys, is going to be a mobile home park. They're going to be 70 amps. There are still some homes that are single-family dwelling in the President Streets in Loveland that are 70 amps down there. So discussing that with you guys, is like, well, I'd like to up my power to my house. I do have people call me all the time and say, well, I'm tripping breakers, and they assume that that's the reason why they're tripping a breaker. They need more power to the whole home. That's not necessary. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's just going to be just a single circuit causing an issue because you're drawing too much wattage, maybe on a space heater in the winter, for example. But I have gone into bus bars that are pretty charred up and they do need to be replaced. But if you do touch it, you can't just replace the panel typically. You've got to touch the service. So what does that mean? Basically, our biggest change of code started right around 2017. And then by 2020, it was huge. So we have a lot of demands that hit us, especially for those rural areas that are farmland out in Berthoud and up in the areas of the mountains. That can be real treacherous that you have your, basically you've got your disconnect on a pole 300 foot away and it goes straight to the basement through an LB, and then that long body fitting feeds a panel. And then there is no disconnect outside. Great, now you get to dig up all that earth, interrupt it, splice box it, bring it up to a disconnect and go back down the same hole that was put through the cement that they core holed. So in this example, this is a really cool example, very small. It's a small little townhome area. We did remodel this kitchen for them and got that done just today and got our final inspection. But so for us, we had to actually add this panel in order to ArcFault GFI Protect because there was no protection in this panel. Now this panel, Thomas and Bates, you can't just pop in your own breaker. There is no UL listing for this type to have an ArcFault GFI. Although some of these breakers by Siemens and Square D and Eaton would fit, technically it doesn't match the Siemens to Siemens brand. So you can't just pop a Siemens in, okay? And you can't get a letter on that. I've already called. So this one, I had a choice to tell the GC. We either put a sub panel or we do a service upgrade. Well, let me talk to you about that service upgrade, how that would affect. So coming up here in this step, the service upgrade would be right here. So the minute we touch it and put a breaker outside, maybe utilities allows this to be over such a cavity, but within 30 inches of clearance, you have to have a ground to it. So you probably have to build out a Trex right here just to support it now, which would cost money. Plus you have fiber underground and coax and all of this that you got to be careful that the guy would putting in a little pylon wouldn't hit, because the gutter's going to drain right into that too and make it sink. But right here, guys, if we put a main breaker out here and a sub-panel breaker that feeds the breaker inside here, we've already offended the code because you cannot be over a cavity like this or a step. Well, don't they make exceptions? No, they don't. Once the grandfather dies, you're not grandfathered in. You got to go to today's standard, guys. So right here, you would then have your surge protection, your inter-system bonding bridge bar, 2 8-foot ground rods driven. You got to rebond your cold water. Now right here, this was built in 1997. I guarantee you this pipe comes all the way over here. Now for any utility guys that watch me, please don't get mad. I've been doing this 26 years. I just lucked out on a video to show you this. Sometimes you're looking for a green box that says electric right here. It also can be fiber, but look what I found. And I do need to call these guys. These are called fingers. Do you see that? Those right there are no different than Ilsko Opolis lugs that we use underground, or also butt splices for gutters. But see the wire going in these smaller conduits? That shows me that it was fed all the way through and there's water in it, so I know it's not draining. But that's only a number 2 wire. So the minimum that these guys are probably going to allow on that number 2 is 125 amp. I'll just seal that up and give them a call. But basically, guys, some utilities are requiring us, if there is no PVC conduit, to bring that through to the house. How do you do that? You don't. You literally don't on a situation like this, because now you're interrupting your neighbor's sidewalk, because H unit is here and that's G unit. So if there is a conduit, they could push through more, but then the second question is will they let you have more? Well, I'd like 200 amp. That's what I saw on Google. Well, that's great, but you have to be able to fit that 2-aught inside of that conduit, if not a 4-aught, depending on the utility. But see over here, is these daisy chain all the way down, there's the big green box by the pine tree. That is your transformer. Now, I guarantee you there's another transformer that those transformers have enough power to support it, but does it have enough power to daisy chain through all 4 connections to this to go to him? That's the key thing. They may not allow more than 150 amp. Now, Excel lately, they've been allowing an aerial cable number 4. I can't believe that they've been allowing. Technically, I assume that you would have to have larger sizes and that they've quoted me at times, but that's up to them, and it's aerial, so aerial has a lot more grace than direct buried or in a conduit sleeve. Because conduit sleeves, no matter what you do, they're going to fill up with water. That glue is going to dry out and the water's going to fill up. And so when we get a lot of rain, but that wire is rated per Article 310, it talks about it, and also 400, but it does talk about that wire is, I think it's 310.20, talks about that it can be a type W wire rated underground or in a wet location. Also, the -2 rating on 310.16 talks about 90 degrees Celsius because the -2 gives us the 90 degrees Celsius, but it has to have a TH/WN rating. So if you're using a URD, then it's got to have that XHHW rating, okay? So bottom line, guys, there's a lot of terminology to the code, and what you order are 2 different slang things at times, but you got to know what you're ordering and based on the wire size for the feeder. Because now technically you're a feeder, you're not a sub-feeder to a panel. A sub-feeder would be me creating it from that meter box through the wall, and now that's going to be an SER cable that I'm going to be using as a secondary line into my sub panels. Okay, so keeping that in mind, guys, utilities has a lot of power and control over what is allowed. We can't just assume to give, can't you just give me a ballpark? Sure, 20 grand, how's that sound? No, you can't give people ballparks like that. Some people go around bidding that all the time, but we don't. So the bottom line is we got to start with utilities. What will they allow us to do? What are some of the challenges? Sometimes there's direct bores that they'll allow. Fort Collins Power, they won't allow us to do any trenching. They only allow their guys to direct bore. And you might want to consider right off the bat, 5-6 grand to even think about talking about a direct bore. That's not including our services. That's just for them. So if you're dealing with Loveland, it's the same thing. They might make us trench it depending on where the power is coming from. So as far as overhead, they don't really allow as many overhead lines. It's not that you can't sometimes, but most of the time you're not supposed to. So anyways, guys, hopefully that'll help you out. Sorry that was kind of long, but I did get to cheat. Sorry, utility guys, I did close it back up, but I just wanted to show people kind of an example of what we're challenged with when you give me a call and say, just give me a quick ballpark. It's a lot more than that. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Have a great day.